Well, good evening, everyone. We're greeting you from California, where the sun is now set on a new Sabbath, and we're pointing our noses quite clearly into the wind, the cool air of an autumn that's on the way. And we've had some very hot weather this summer, but now there's a kind of an anticipation. And I like to think, as we did a couple of weeks ago, that we have the anticipation of school children going back to school. And the adrenaline that comes to the people in the temperate zones of the approaching colder weather days where we must have a feeling of up and atom and action. So may we begin our reading of what we're calling the Living Wisdom of Swami Abhedananda, one of the 16 disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, a fairly recent superluminary in India in the 1800s. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai Om Shanti Shanti Om. May He protect us. May He nourish us. May we work together with great energy. May our study be vigorous. May we like each other. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, with our autumn sleeves rolled up, let's see how high we can get up the mountain of God tonight. You know, in California we have these ribs that go all the way down the state. They start in Canada and Alaska probably, of mountain ranges. The Sierra are our neighbors to the north. And in Southern California, we're quite conscious that we're sitting down here in a very lovely, palm-encircled, sunny, semi-tropical, semi-arid part of the country with a chain of mountains leading due north, beckoning us, calling us with the anticipation of rising higher and higher in our spiritual consciousness. I remember when I was in the the wilderness section, where you're not supposed to leave any footprint, fire, nothing, any evidence of your having been there, and you're supposed to tell somebody when you go in. One of the rangers. And I had a feeling that Mother would provide an adventure. I just knew that would be the course in the day as we go up the mountain. And you get to a viewpoint where you can look out, if it's the east face, for example, hundreds of miles, as it were, toward the Great Plains, the Great American Desert, and the Great Plains, and the place where we grow our corn in the Midwest, onto the teeming multitudes of the cities of the north, and the still rural, and even primevally so, areas where many of our ancestors found a kind of serenity in the isolation of the old mountains that were as big as the Rockies years and years ago, the Appalachians, the Adirondacks. And I'm thinking of the marvelous hymn, "Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber fields of grain." When the songsters who composed that great anthem, "America, America, God shed His grace on thee," and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Catherine Lee Bates, when she was from Wellesley, when she got to Chicago in 1893, lo and behold, as she was working her way west, she found a World's Fair going on. And the simulacrum of marble white exteriors everywhere. It was truly a Greek ideal of white gleaming pillars and temples, in large measure to the success of human engineering, aided by the exploration and invasion of the New World by the European peoples, and all that had happened since. And as we all know, at the tail end, at the tail end of the Great World's Fair, the centennial of all of those people coming from someplace else, they tagged on a Parliament of the World's Religions for a week, in which our Swami Vivekananda spoke and introduced, really, embodied interfaith harmony in the West. And she wrote one of the stanzas of her great anthem, America, America, right there, and said, as I recall it, "Oh, beautiful for patriots' dream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears." That's the World's Fair. My friends, that's the Parliament of the world's religions. So let's have a little fun with one of our favorite 16. They're all our favorites, one of the day, who, as we like to recall at this time, had reached the top of his mountain, as we feel they all had done, meaning the ultimate experience of oneness with God. Swami Abhedananda, and spent some 25 years in the West, maybe all of them, virtually in the U.S., at least 20. And he says, speaking of our journey to infinity, these are the steps toward realization. The divine ideal is free from all limitations. Wherever there is limitation, there is the imperfect manifestation of divinity, capital D. Therefore, if we wish to harmonize our character with the divine ideal, capital I, the Greek ideal, the Sanskrit ideal, the ideal of all nations, where people's souls have been inspired increasingly, kind of like in some onward path until they reach the very top of the mountains. Ramakrishna reached it, and following all the paths available to him, many in India, and Christianity and Islam, and found that the ultimate mystical experience, the highest, what we call nirvikalpa samadhi, absolute union with God, is the same. So, if we wish to harmonize our character with the divine ideal, we must remember that divinity is free from all limitations, while we are crippled in our minds by the conditions under which we are living. And our attempt should be to rise above and remove all limitations which prevent the manifestation of divine power, to realize the emancipation of the soul. I don't know about y'all, but I just love the way this man speaks. Imagine hearing him in person. I understand he talked to crowds of more than 1,000 people in New York, in Brooklyn. He was here for 20 years. He absorbed, as I like to say, donut will coffee, man. In every pore, the times and the tempers and the people and the emotions and the kinds of people we are and were, hearing really for the first time in its fullness this ocean of spirituality from one of the great sons of the East. Holding that ideal, he says, before the mind, we must march onward toward the goal. Okay, now the cool weather's coming, the adrenaline in our soul. That's what we want to do. So let's point our noses up and catch a little of the cool breeze that's coming and be on our way. Each individual soul being a spark of the huge bonfire of divinity is of a similar divine nature. If you go to your innermost depths, there you will find the eternal spark within you. Beyond the ego, there is a spark. And that spark is immortal and divine in reality. But it's covered or veiled by your mental conditions, desires, ambitions, earthly limitations, physical limitations. All these could really be put in quotes. And sense powers. Every individual soul may therefore be called potentially divine. Actually, it's so simple. We just hold on to that like a pillar. That India's discovered there is an infinity shining. And from that, the logic is short and sweet and simple. To me, it's ineluctable. You try it on for size. If there is a shining infinity, there can't be two. There's only one. And that means that everything, and everybody, including you, you're not a part of it. You're one with it. So this whole thing is uncovering something, right? That for some amazing reason, they call it Maya. The word is related to magic. We have the word regal and royal, and in Spanish is real, and king in Latin is rex regis. Regis is of the king. So just as regal and royal, we have Maya and magic. Enchantment. But whatever sleep it is, as I believe it must be Shakespeare says, yes, our life is but a sleep and a forgetting. We want to wake up. It's about time. So it says it's covered by all these things. Every individual may therefore be called potentially divine. And each is struggling to make that potential divinity, all these are capital D's, manifest itself on the plane of consciousness to make it an actual reality. Now, my friends, if you want to know the distinction, let's just get down to brass tacks. This is not a dogma. It's not even an idea of one person. You just see, this is what they say. Think about it yourself. If you're going to talk about the difference between the East and the West, and remember that's what's happening to us now. China has been with us for quite a while, and recently we've opened our arms to all of Chinese art, started in San Francisco, and now Indian art is coming on the scene, don't you see? And the world of India, if you want to know the difference, is simply this. In America, I suggest to you, submit, you make your own evaluation. We have 3 states of consciousness that our psychology, for example, examines in various degrees of detail. The waking state, the dreaming state, and the dreamless state, or the unconscious. 3 consciousness. India has a 4th state. It's not taught in our schools. Much. It's not taught. It's not part of the Western curriculum from the days of Greece, when we focused just on the analytical part, not the Dionysian or the mystical part of Greece. Socrates is a lumen soul, We call him, Emerson called him Saint Socrates. But since we have focused just on the analytical part, we do not know about the 4th or the superconscious state. India knows. like a sideshow. Come this way, come see the barker. Actually, exhibitions at the World's Fair went all along a big strip of Chicago that actually leads up to the Divinity School now. So there they are. Come see, come see. So we're trying to make that potential divinity manifest itself on the plane of consciousness, to make it an actual reality. Well, of course, it comes out in the long run to be the actual reality, the only actual reality. We're all struggling to be conscious of our divine nature and to be perfect, and by that he means that we're all seeking, let's say, happiness, pursuit of happiness. Haven't a clue where to find it. Well, we have a little clue. Love of a baby and all of this sort of thing. However, the problem of America today, we're well into the month of October, and I guess you all know what that means. The problem with America today is we are looking for happiness in all the wrong places. But seek it we may, and seek it we must, and liberty. We're seeking for liberty, inner freedom. So we're all struggling to be conscious of our divine nature and to be perfect, and so long as there is that struggle to become perfect, there cannot be peace and happiness. That is to say, sit on your thumbs and be satisfied. This is the great joy and the adventure of life, seeking, let's say tonight, peace and happiness. Knowingly or unknowingly, each individual soul is striving for becoming perfect and to reach that state where absolute contentment and happiness, peace and blissfulness reign forever. For this reason, we find that men and women of the world are not contented. They are not happy and are running after something, but they do not know what that thing is. And I take some comfort from the fact that in France, though they have an adjective for, for happy, heureux, is heureux, but content, je suis content. I am content. This means I'm happy. All right. However, they're trying to be perfect. Gimme, 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 gimme. One way of looking at the motive, the driving force, say, in American life, is assimilation. My teacher, Paul Weiss, he was a disciple of Alfred North Whitehead. He, at one point in his life, when we were with him, he said assimilation. Because if you just get more and more, you get bigger and bigger. People have noticed. And so the feeling is the misplaced logic of just one more thing, and I will have reached infinity. But you don't. That way. Like money or anything else, control over people. And I like to think, what does the billionaire think? When he gets out of bed in the morning, what does he want? $1 more. Don't you see? And he or she can't stop when they're in that lockstep because they think that's the way and they want perfection. Oh boy. So absolute peace, contentment, happiness, and wisdom are the conditions, he says, of spiritual realization. As the splendor and most glorious illumination of the dawn, here he goes, I love this in him, herald the immediate rising of the sun above the horizon. So all these saintly qualities, purity, contentment, chastity, tranquility, disinterested love for all, that means even the guy that's really in deep trouble. It's a question of whether life itself is worthwhile on these terms, in that he struggles to survive. So if nothing else, my friends, don't you see there's no unemployment in spiritual life? If nothing else, you can get two things out of that guy. homeless, lying 1 foot from the gutter, maybe drunk, obsessively, chronically, or worse. Get 2 things. Man lying in the gutter. I don't want to do that. And the other is, as Americans, we must say this. How can I serve? How can I serve? Knows what can I do? Well, my friend, got to do something. So Abhedananda's got the idea we can climb the mountain of God. You see, we're all interested in all this stuff. We want to write a check. But the beggar, he may want to write a check, but got no money in the bank. Buddha, one of the great shining superluminaries of the world's history, he had some money in the bank. He was the son of a king whose father knew that he would either be a prince, king of the world, or he'd become a monk. Which one is the richer man? So Buddha started out on his journey. We have a Bodhi tree, what do you suppose? Maybe 500 feet from here? Maybe not even that. Probably not even that. Big Bodhi tree. Sat on the tree, said, I'm not getting up. You see, this time, I've been at this for years, this business trying to find whatever it is that'll help me reach and attain all these absolute conditions, satisfaction, perfection. This time I'm not getting up. Let the body drop until I see what it is that I'm searching for. And he found it. So now we're kind of on a pretty big trip, are we not? So he says that in the light of this divine sun, darkness is dispelled, and the darkness which enveloped the real nature of things and made it invisible to mortal beings is vanquished. Now, all of these saintly qualities that he was reeling out, as the sun is, the illumination of the dawn is coming up, the sun's coming up over the horizon, he said that all of the darkness is vanished, and in that divine light, the past and future will be like eternal present, infinity. There is neither past nor future for the soul. If you rise on the soul plane, the past and future will vanish. You'll remember everything that's happened to you and will happen to you. This day, this month, and year we're counting today do not affect the soul. The moment you close your eyes, all this calculation of time will vanish, and all these space relations will also not exist. Now, all of these wonderful virtues, these saintly qualities, and I think it's worth reinforcing them in our minds. Purity, contentment, chastity, tranquility, and disinterested love for all. That was where we got to. Non-attachment to material things. Whee! Talk about freedom. That's quite a place to start in America. And perfect wisdom are the signs which herald the rising of the divine sun upon the horizon of the individual soul. Do you realize, friends, if we turned out all the lights, those words would still glow in the dark from the page? These are the signs which herald the rising of the divine sun upon the horizon of the individual soul. And he says in that state, and he knows, it's been there is no sorrow, no pain, no suffering of birth or death. then absolute peace and happiness come to the soul. It is said that in that state of realization, all knots of desires are torn asunder, all desires are fulfilled, all doubts cease forever, all questions of the mind are answered, crookedness of the heart is straightened, and the individual soul, transcending all limitations, soars high in the infinite space, and the souls eternally enjoy absolute freedom and bliss. Now, I really did want to read this part because this is what we're really all about. The journey, if you see where we're headed, the journey, my friends, to the infinite. Now, if you'll just give me a minute, I want to paw through stuff for a moment. And I want to just see something here. Oh, just leave it, it's fine. The chapter that we're in now, after he has had these mountaintop elevations of the spirit in the chapters leading up to this, is called, if you remember, the Steps Toward Realization. And I very much am eager to, as I say, hoist up our sleeves, roll up our sleeves, and get to this autumn, get to this wonderful, tangy, adrenaline-filled state spiritually. And yet, I want to take another moment or two as we move into this almost penultimate chapter, the steps, because there are quite a few of them. We need to deal with the relative plane, I submit, whether we want to or not. Many of us came here thinking, well, 24 hours ought to do it. I'm going to realize my union with the Absolute within about 24 hours. The way I'm going to do it is sit down and meditate. Well, that was the ancient Indian view as recently as Shankara. However, Vivekananda had a new idea. And the new idea was that, yep, but there are other things you need to do than but and solely sit down and meditate. And so we got the reputation, and it was a sniffy reputation by other monks in India when he came back from America and started his active work. The order, founding the order and all these things. We were called the sweepers. Not only the sweepers, but the hospital builders and the university constructors in India. And we're there for famine and flood, and yes, my friends, for the virus. Because in serving one's fellow human being, that is to say, serving this imputed divinity within, we're worshiping him. And don't you see? It's not a pat on your head, my poor man. Here's 50 cents. Knock yourself out. Go knock yourself out. Vivekananda was so strong, he said, after you're in the shrine, if you want to see God, the nearest place, in the heart of another human being. So by worshiping him, that's a path. Another path is to be real clear as soon as ever you can of where the high road is and the path which will lead to God. And my friends, though the alcoholic seeks it there, a happiness that will never end, it's not in the bar. I mean, an occasional drink, that's something. But my friends, I have to tell you, and I hope you don't mind, the bars are closed. They are supposed to be temples of God, but they're not. If you want to have a drink, that's one thing. But if you want to find the end to pain, suffering, don't go on a binge on Sunday. Well, on Monday, you're going to wake up with a headache. And that's true of practically every one of the goals that the American woman and man and woman have set themselves these days. And that's the reason for the pickle we are in. And if you want to talk about the rich and the poor in America, you can kind of make it simple. Swami Krishna did. Say the problem in America is greed and too many babies. The poor people might like to have greed, but they don't have any money. There's not a way to get it. And the problem for the poor people is, it's pretty much a rich man's avocation. It's the spiritual gulf of the rich man. Greed, assimilation, infinity that way. Doesn't work. And the curse of the poor, friends, this makes me weep internally because it's the incubus on the back of humanity. Too many babies. Where did we ever get the idea? You know, we know, and people are saying it. When I was a young feller, there were 2 billion people on the planet, man. I've been around the sun a few times, but I ain't been around that many times. 7 billion and counting. You don't want to read yesterday's newspaper, 7 billion. Who will stand up and point out the world as a flame? They can't get the attention of American people on environmental sustainability and the crisis, climate change. And who will stand up, I ask you, and say that overpopulation is the number 1 foundation of our misery, and it's the number 2, and it's the number 3. I try, and I can't make it here in L.A., and I can't make it among the religious folks. I'm not saying all of them, but I want to see our Vivekananda standing tall in the 21st century, the new millennium, his millennium, saying science and truth are all the religion there is, by which he means reason with a capital R. Swamiji didn't know that smoking's bad for you. But surely he would stand on his hind legs today. This is what I call steps to infinity. This is what I call steps to infinity. And with reason. So you want to solve the problems? Poor folks have something to do, rich folks have something to do, and whatever it is, you ain't doing it. You're going in exactly the wrong direction. It's not a question of morality and good, bad, look down your nose. No, it's a question of absolute survival so that we will be able to spend our lives as it should be spent, seeking God, yearning for God. Oh yeah, 24 hours? It takes about that long, friends, coming to Vedanta, to find out intellectually up here in the left hemisphere that we are, in fact, now one with infinity. You want to talk about avoided Vedanta? A lot of people practice avoided Vedanta. That's not avoided Vedanta. Avoided Vedanta, which means non-dual, you get that the first day. Okay, all right, yeah. Let me think about that a while. I see that. And then what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Twiddle your thumbs? So let's say, as Swami Krishna does say, at one point, you never know what you're going to say tomorrow. First jnana. First the awareness of the infinity, which we are, the reality, the real instead of the apparent. And then bhakti. And then love and yearning and wanting to find the perfection. And you know what else he says? Have 2 babies and stop. Now, if you think that the relative plane of the cosmos is irrelevant, even if you're going to try to meditate 16 hours a day, and there are very few that the guru might say, yeah, you give that a whirl, I see you can do that. You're not going to get very far. If somebody, even if you're in samadhi, doesn't come around and kind of, chicken soup for the soul, slap you up around the cheeks, the head, and say, here's some chicken soup. So there are certain requirements at the level of the relative plane, and environmental sustainability is, I think, numero uno. Now, I want to do something, folks, with each other today, but I really did want to read that passage, and I know it's our secret again, because the whole purpose of our Friday night get-togethers is exactly that wonderful title that Swami Sardananda used for his lecture. I just love the logo, the picture, so we're using it. Journey to the infinite. If you'll bear with me, I want to talk about this milieu, this environment that we have of the relative plane, where we must willy-nilly make our way up the ladder of God. One of the first things that you want to do is get yourself a teacher, a manager of the baseball team. I speak about St. Thomas of Lasorda. Everybody, you don't need to worry about this. We'll take care of it. But we're about to win the World Series. The Dodgers, the Doyers, the Brooklyn Dodgers. It's my team since World War II. And I speak about St. Thomas of Lasorda as our ideal manager. You not only have in Vedanta and the mystical tradition, it's after the school of Michelangelo. That's the way you learn the embodiment of a human being. We not only have our manager in the Vedanta societies, but we've got a first base coach and a batting practice instructor, fielding. Everything a person needs to make progress can be had through one of these means, which is called holy company. India has sent us a wave from the ocean of infinity, which is their experience for thousands of years, the ultimate knowledge of God. Knowledge merely means experience, and Brahmananda points out it means light. So here, one of our Swamis, who was the president Swami when we went to India, says we have to live in the world in a detached way and reject the idea that the world is real. Hey, you want to be up and about it? That could be your second day. 24 hours, get the picture, the map. But remember, our boy Korzybski, the Semantic Society, said the map is not the country. Got to be out and walking. But nevertheless, you get the second 48, in the next 48 hours, you got to reject the idea that the world is real. The feeling we have in the West that the world is real is due to God. There are some of us that are trying this on a daily walk, or however many times we can, who exists everywhere. We should remember this and act with the awareness that God is in everything, in whatever we see in the world. And we're actually trying this out on the flowers and the plants and the trees. They don't give us any trouble. Tree is the most self-effacing, wonderful symbol of equanimity. And the little critters, the little flying things, what the American Indians call the winged people. And the squirrel that comes up and wants to say hello in the morning, does come right up. Or the cat that walks through, unaware of COVID-19. There's kind of a serenity upon the land. And the birds and the animals are coming closer into the cities. And I guess some of the children are still looking up and seeing the stars. In this case, the entire cosmos will be covered with God. He says, once we realize that He alone is the true substance, capital S, then nothing can generate attachment in us. And attachment is nothing more than mistaking the false, finite, that will pass away, be evanescent as a dream, is a dream, for the reality. I would like to try one more on you because I think this guy is something else, you know, I really do. Our Swami Bhuteshananda, former president, dear president of the Ramakrishna order, says here the main point is to have firm faith in the words of the scriptures. Well, not that somebody told you to, it's because it grabs you. Hey, I never thought of that. I never thought of it that way. That everyone and everything I know and see is infinity. No wonder I like these people. And the worst thing you want to do to a butterfly? Tell me, my friends. Well, see, some of us are naturalists here. The naturalists observe things. What is the worst thing you can do to this little emblem of joy that flies this way in such great beauty? It's to catch it in a net. And you know, everybody's seeking the same things. We really all are. And Swami used to point that out. No matter where you're born, no matter what your standpoint is, you look out on the other people in humanity and say, oh, they don't look like me. Wherever you are. Take a Japanese gentleman, of whom we had a great example in our Hide Watanabe, who went on to be Spielberg's gardener, but he was our wisdom line. When he came in, everybody stood at attention. Funny as the day is long. Mm-hmm. We want happiness. We want love that will never let you down and never die, either yours or the rest of the all. We want, as the folks in India say simply, Satchitananda, wisdom. Being. Wisdom and joy. That's what we want. So I'm thinking that if everybody wants this, well, okay, how about the love thing? I'm trying to tell people because it just occurred to me. You know, the bell finally rang off. If you want to be loved, you got to be lovable. Hey, you know, this is kind of like third grade math. 4 and 4, it's supposed to make a specific number every day. That's why math is so wonderful. It doesn't tell you anything new on each side of the equation. It's called tautology. But it seems new. You know, psychology is new, and that's the whole thing about spiritual life. And you go around, you know, you're talking to one person, looking down your nose at somebody else, everybody else. Line up a storm. Hey, hey, hey. We go into that. It's all a question of energy levels. We can do better than this. That's what the Americans are telling each other. We are better than this. Now, I'm not talking this guy, that guy, this team, that team, but Elijah Cummings, who now you know is over in glory. You know it. We've had a few real, like, preachers serving the whole citizenry of this country. He said, we're better than that. We can be better than that. And this is not a question of your game and my game and sports and whatnot. This is God country. No? You want to be loved? Why don't you start out thinking about it? Be lovable. I actually think there are 3 ancillary or contributive things, stepping stones to infinity. One, as we have suggested, is, well, the big one really, the ego's the problem. The ego's false. Peel an onion, Swami could say, you won't find nothing there in the center. So the ego is the one big thing, and everything else follows from that. But the idea to treat somebody else, not only as if as you would be treated, but as the very you that is yourself, the very I that is within me. And the road to my advancing up the mountain to God by understanding you, by looking into your eye, by turning around 180 degrees, standing in your shoes, looking back at me, and looking at the world from behind your eyes. And from saying, yes, my brother, you are God. Whatever your condition, you have something of immense value in your very being, in your very soul. You can't deny it. You can't sidestep it. And I ignore it at my peril and at the world's peril. You know, they talk about this and that and supremacy and whatnot. It's not so much supremacy, my friends. That's the effect of an attitude. Say in New York, attitude. They say that in the South too. It's the effect of superiority. And that is one of these false things. Everybody has some gift, some potential that they were supposed to fulfill. And by serving and helping someone else, not helping, worshiping, unlocking, even to go by with a smile and a loving feeling. It's a road to God. So environmental sustainability, racial justice, few things like that, I think probably are irreducibles for our new ethics on the relative plane. Okay, now my boy here, this is Swami Bhutishan still. He says, what does one gain? I'll offer this to you. Just think about it. Evaluate it on your own. By reasoning alone. When we try to understand him through the process of reasoning, we only give some exercise to our intellect. The intellect is part of this whole thing, the mind thing. First the eyes, not the organ of vision. The wires go back to the sight, entertainment center in the back of your head. And these are all different things. You have to see something, then you have to... And then comes the intellectual discriminating faculty, the discerning, the intellectual will. This set of sense experience, I had that when I was 6 years old. I stood right here at this corner and I saw this thing coming at me, and now I'm going to call it a bus, even though it's way down the road. The intellectual discriminating faculty is a huge part of this trip. But he says it's not possible to realize him by intelligence. Hey, the mind is composed of the receiving the senses and the discernment of what they are. But again, we do not have any other recourse than the intellect through which we can realize him. This gets to be fun. Now, that is why it has been said that we cannot know him, quotes, through this intelligence, end quote. The scriptures also contain such contradictory statements. Now, this is where we go into school, and this is where it's like working with wood. It's fun. That which man does not comprehend, this is a quote, with the mind, that by which they say the mind is encompassed. That fourth state, remember, of superconsciousness? Again, it is said elsewhere, this is to be attained through the mind indeed. The true significance of these contradictory statements is, that he is beyond our mind and intelligence, but he's realizable through the pure mind and the purified intellect, by which may mean loving God in sight. It's kind of claimed that in that instant Swami Sarvaneva used to call them hints. Swahananda. A friend of mine, spiritual, I was grateful. I was really blessed to know this man as a wisdom companion, the life trip, the journey. I didn't see him much, of course, after we. John Rosenberg taught English at Columbia way after he's supposed to be out in Clover, I don't know, 80 or something. But the point is, this is exactly what we're talking about here. You're seeing it from inside. Subjectivity. That's why he was such a great English teacher. And his wife told me, that John last summer, a year ago, in the end days, she said, I think, he's like in heaven. He said he saw light. And he saw, I don't know, angels or something, or he saw uplifting, inspiring things, and some kind of visual figure, like drawings or something of like geometry. So he did it. He did it by yearning and seeking for God in his own way. He met our Swamis. George Harrison lived up the street, my brothers and sisters. Means a lot to me. I don't know about you. And our Krishnananda, our old wonderful Swami, whom we repaired to, he's the standard to which we repair, a quiet man from Framingham. That's the way we say it in the Western dialect, Framingham, Massachusetts. Sion, S-C-I-O-N, Sion, son of a wealthy house. Came here, found Swami, fell silent. Didn't talk a whole lot. When he talked, you better listen. Worthwhile. We happened to get on to his secret. Maybe the Swami helped us understand. He said he did what I told him to do. Chant in the name of the Lord. This man would, he took a whole bunch of spiral notebooks. He was kind of squirrely. To India and dumped them in the Ganges. I was a younger man. Somebody saw one of those. Somebody, I don't know. Anyway, it was the name of God in there. So this man tripping through life, like John with his yearning, all the time that everybody else thought he was like dumb, and I mean dumb, Remember what I think it was Mark Twain said, it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. So here is this tall, wonderful, dignified, funny, wonderful, loving man. And inside, instead of being silent, he's singing. God, 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 God. God, 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 God. He took $400 worth of books up to George Harrison's place. The wife came down and had tea with the sisters. In George Harrison's end days. Well, she just put out a film, Martin Scorsese, and we have that film. Jerry Goodman, Benny Goodman's nephew, just loaned it to us. On the night he went on to glory, my friends, talk about the devotees. There was light in the room, as if, she says, his wife, they brought in the lights, the Klieg lights, the stage lights. So we're going to sign off here. It's said in Vedanta, I believe this is what they're saying, that if you have an instant inclination, an instant hint And then some aperçu, that's what John Rosenberg called it, French word, wonderful word, aperçu, perception. You can see all the way down to the still depths of the ocean. Because it said the purified mind, which merely means one with God, attached, if you will. That's the whole point, don't you see, about renunciation. You're not renouncing nothing. You're accepting God holistically and seeing God in and as everything, and it works even at simple levels. We know it does. So the purified mind, they say, is one with Brahman. So, I think the true significance of the scriptures, that means subjectively, is revealed only when the mind and the intellect are purified. Well, we've come to the end of a beautiful day. If you remember when we were talking about this, next time we're going to talk about nirvana and this, that, and the other. A little bit more self-control, he says, is the first thing, and non-attachment, and then all this good stuff. Fifth step, the step of spiritual enlightenment. The awakening of the soul is the first step in the path of realization. And you know what that means? That means that when we get the real source of happiness, which is the infinite, we do get inspired. That's what our really happy moments are all about. And to turn the attention, with India's help, like a great telescope, within, is a secret. So, my brothers and sisters, seems to me this is what we should all be up and about. Not only for the anticipated joy, isn't this the essence? For one's own life, but for the fact that we really might, without even knowing it, like the song of a bird that sings and leaves the telephone wire or the branch of the tree and never looks back to see the effect of his song. The very chance that we might be able to help, serve, worship another. He said, the last time we got together, he quoted Meister Eckhart, and he said, this is Abhedananda, when passions are stilled and all worldly desires silenced, then the Word of God can be heard in the soul. And as he calls him the great Christian mystic, German Christian mystic, he said, there must be perfect stillness in the soul before God can whisper his word into it, before the light of God can shine into the soul and transform the soul into God. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om. That is infinite. This is infinite, meaning Brahman and the universe. From the infinite has come. Taking the infinite from the infinite alone remains. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.